Sonic X Episode 55. Oh great, the beginning completely wastes our time by showing us Chris's family's reaction to Chris leaving. I'm shocked they waste their time with this. But at least the justification for them not getting Chris back is that Chuck doesn't want to damage his machine by trying to do anything with it. But still, I refuse to believe they couldn't just go into his portal themselves and just get him back. Anyways, Knuckles insists that the Master Emerald was reacting to an emerald, and Cosmo points out a planet, and Sonic says that according to a book he has, it's dry as a bone, and Amy wants to land on that planet, and Tails complains because he's supposed to give the orders. This is not a good way to portray Amy, bossy. And why can't Knuckles himself be the one who detects the emeralds? He had an emerald radar in his suit too. It was amusing that Sonic said they can't land here because there's water, and there's gotta be a mistake. But I'm really glad the planet has water, because if it was dry, then I'd be questioning how there could be a breathable atmosphere for the heroes. But why did the Galactic Guidebook say the planet was dry then? Tails calls the book outdated. At least this confusing thing was addressed to kind of explain why his book was wrong. Tails says to launch the submarines, and Sonic is seasick in the submarine department next to Chris. Chris dodges some fish in fear, and the sub spins around. Why are the Chaos Emeralds not on Mobius and on this planet instead? I always assumed that Sonic sent the Chaos Emeralds to Mobius. This is why we shouldn't just have 7 Chaos Emeralds. It'd make more sense if every planet had its own Chaos Emeralds, or better yet, at least every planet besides Mobius had at least 1 emerald. Knuckles starts digging for the emeralds, and Cream and Cosmo pointlessly rake the surface with rakes they somehow have. Don't try to pretend they're being useful, show. Or if not, either way this is just embarrassing their characters. Sonic accuses the fish there of being Metarex and turning the planet into a water world, and Chris says he was given martial arts lessons by Tanaka. But I'm somehow expected to believe he can't fight just because his limbs aren't long enough, when it should be obvious that he should just stand closer to the fish in the first place. Chris thinks that he's got the strength of a 12-year-old and punches one just to hurt his hand, which is realistic but still lame for an action series since he was trying to fight. Sonic fights off the fish and tells Chris to get in the sub and get going. I refuse to believe Sonic wouldn't have instantly looked behind him and heard the Metrix and been grabbed without even trying to look behind him long after Chris warned him. I refuse to believe he wouldn't have heard it sneak up on him and been thrown in the water. I refuse to believe that the Metrix could have put him in a net like that. And Sonic has no reason not to spin dash out of it right away, which he can do in STC and Archie just fine. Chris reluctantly leaves in his sub on Sonic's order after that ridiculousness, and Tails lampshades Chris wanting to save Sonic himself. Chris admits he doesn't have a plan to save Sonic, and Tails says the overly cheesy line that they can save Sonic if they use teamwork. Amy calls Tails from under the island, and she says her new friends saw someone capturing Sonic. So she'll get kidnapped, right? She'll need someone to bail her out, right? Because this is Sonic X. She looks forward to Sonic thanking her for saving him, and wastes her time daydreaming about him asking her to marry him out loud. And this lasts several seconds. Then Amy insists she doesn't need a chaperone to protect her. This really is the worst Amy ever. I don't think any other Amy is this bad. Then Tails tells Chris to take a rest and wash his dirty face too, and Chris angsts about a situation. We're told that Chuck gave him pilot experience, and he got work experience too, and he lampshades that he can't help at all because even Cream and Cheese can do more than he can. And he is totally useless, and should have stayed home. I'm glad they're self-aware at least, but we didn't need all this worthless reused footage, especially not footage of Chris's picture of Sonic breaking. Chris then convinced himself out of nowhere that he had to come here because Sonic was in danger. We really didn't need to see Chris's original designs. And Helen giggles at his idea for friction-reducing speed shoes, only to say she knows how wonderful it is. So she's giggling at his enthusiasm. Chris arbitrarily convinces himself that Sonic does need him just because he's smarter now, even though Tails is a genius too. Fuck this lame little kids show. I hate forced lightheartedness. They should have left this part of the episode out. Anything Chris could do, you think Tails could do better. Sonic is held over a shark tied up and says that if it's hungry, he can order a pizza. And Amy fights past some Metrix fish, and Tails goes through an air duct because even he knows Amy needs bailing out all the time. Oh, he's not going into the building where Sonic is, he's just going into his tornado. You know, Tails might as well be a cripple who needs the plane to move. I think he's only ever flew with his tails one time, and that was just to rip off a video game. We could have X-Tails incapable of flying with his tails, and it make no difference so far. Amy jumps towards Sonic when he's swinging, and he doesn't catch her, so she falls in the water. She somehow jumps directly out of the water from the surface and saves Sonic, even though there's no solid surface to press against with her feet to let her jump out of the water at all. And at least she manages to get Sonic out of the building. She has a fishing line in his ropes, so that's how she gets him to the plane. I'm impressed. Sonic is also ungrateful enough to tell Amy to never rescue him again. That was dumb of him. Chris throws red light at Sonic's feet, and that made me think it was a red Chaos Emerald for a while, which would have made this make sense. But somehow Chris from normal Earth was Mary Sue enough to invent shoes that get magically summoned by red light. He falls in the water without his ropes on. Wait, where did they go? And it turns out he's wearing hover shoes, thanks to Chris. So that's how he didn't fall in the water. Okay, but Tails should have invented these. Still, it's cool that Sonic punches the Metrix away and dodges the water and stuff. But this is like if they introduced an engineer to Sad AM that actually bothered making weapons all the time and portrayed him as useful, when he's only useful because Rotor was too stupid to make the inventions people needed. The world goes back to a desert because the Metrix fish were defeated. Wait, how'd they get to this position? Cream finds the Chaos Emerald, and this is the first one, so apparently I'm supposed to believe the reason the planet returned to desert was because the Metrix were all defeated in this tiny little location. And I seriously have to question why Sonic tells Chris to hold on to his hover shoes for him instead of wearing them all the time. He has no reason to do this. I really don't understand why a Chaos Emerald fell on a planet that isn't its native one. It never does that. It's so obvious that they just went to different planets from the meta logic that the writers wanted them to go there. I'm glad I got to see what the Metrix tend to do to planets at least, rather than actually destroying them by stealing their life force all the time. They're terraforming planets to suit their needs, which I wouldn't put past humans of Earth to do the minute they're able to. But doesn't this contradict the planet egg thievery? They just made the planet more able to support life by giving it tons of water. How's I expected to believe the planet had native people on it when it was normally a desert planet? How are they breathing? How is there a breathable atmosphere for Chris and Sonic in a planet without tons of oxygen-producing plants? We're given every indication that it's just a desert world. But the only way it would make sense is if it had a giant rainforest somewhere, since there's people living on it. It's not like it's Mars. The heroes going from planet to planet in space reminds me of Tossed in Space from Archie, which was surprisingly awesome to read. So I do love how refreshing this is for Sonic. I don't blame the writers for thinking they needed to take the heroes into space, because instead of keeping them all in a spaceship in space 24/7, fortunately they're instead taking this as an opportunity to show off alien planets. The problem is that 1, I'd much rather see a desert like this on Mobius to world build it. And 2, the Planet of Hats trope is a trope that needs to die. I refuse to believe a planet with intelligent living beings on it would be entirely desert. So that doesn't make sense. Why bother world building their universe if it makes no sense anyways? The planet with super fast time in Archie didn't make sense either, but at least it was way more interesting, and we could assume it was more than just one type of climate and stuff. And we were never told the other planets they were all one location either. If it's totally unbelievable to make every new planet entirely the same all over, you really would be better off just having them go to a desert restrained to Mobius, and so on and so forth, and the plot would be exactly the same. We didn't gain anything from it being on an alien planet instead of Mobius. We just had the civilians look less appealing. They even spoke the same language as Amy. Somehow. So that just makes it more confusing. It makes me wish they never thought up that planet egg concept, because all it's done is force them to go to space after the Metrics to protect their planet from being attacked by the Metrics coming to fight them. When we see the Metrics on this planet and it's not drained of all life, so that's confusing. At that point, it feels like they could have easily written it so that the Metrics tried to attack Mobius again and landed on a desert this time and they kicked them out. If the planet egg is a power source, why can't they just find more Chaos Emeralds? It's awesome that Amy actually got to save Sonic without a catch. Though one, it was very forced that he even got kidnapped. And two, it was very forced that it wasn't Tails who made Sonic hover shoes in the first place, when he's from a more advanced planet and he's the engineer. But instead somehow Chris who throws light that turns into hover shoes. It wouldn't be so stupid if these were just Sonic's shoes to begin with, and he didn't realize he'd put different shoes on. Like would be keeping things simple. He could have woken up from his nap with them on. It's really cheesy that they try to pretend this is how Chris is necessary and useful. Because logically, Tails should have made these shoes for Sonic to begin with. But instead, Chris is only useful because of how horribly off Tails as an engineer is. Where literally the only thing he's competent enough to engineer is planes. What they should have done was have Chuck stick to planes while Tails does everything else. Instead, Tails, a main Sonic character, sticks to planes and spaceships while normal human kid Chris does everything else. I'm impressed that he's useful, but I'd be more impressed if I weren't confused that Tails isn't doing this. It really goes to show you how there's so many different characters here that how could Chris not be redundant? Amy is redundant as it is. Amy had a shockingly bad characterization this episode, showing everything people hate about her character. She's bossy, she's delusionally infatuated with Sonic, and she's a mean, short-tempered brat. This is how she is in the games as well. Aside from the crush thing, that's how she is in the Boom comic as well. And yet in Fleetway, where Sonic's a jerk, Amy is way nicer and has none of those problems. While it's here where she's at her most unlikable. It's hard for me to find her cool for saving Sonic without getting hurt or kidnapped when she's an annoying brat the whole episode. Which isn't funny, so she isn't making good comedy relief. She's honestly worse than Chris, because Chris doesn't go out of his way to annoy us. He's just a harmless, nice kid. While Amy's an outright jerk. And Knuckles can be a jerk too. At least Knuckles was useful by sensing a Chaos Emerald on the planet for them. They seem to be making the other characters than Sonic more on equal grounds with him as useful.